Hey friends, I I'm having my morning coffee. It's I had a late night last night. Even though we had a matinee performance, I came home and my brother's in town, so we were up very late having a conversation, and it was awesome. Um, and I'm kind of so where I have arrived at, or where I am this morning is just having had a really nice kind of reconnection with my brother and been able to get some time. It's one of these things that you really start to appreciate as lives get more complex and family commitments change just the nature of your time. Um, but really, I'm really appreciating taking that time. There's something I talk about frequently, I think, or at least I have in the past talked about how important I think. I mean, it's kind of like, for me, it's very important to continue to engage in conversations around, well, what I would call, for me, spiritual practice, but what might, for not everybody necessarily thinks of it that way, but what we're always doing, what everyone is always doing on some level and to varying degrees of enthusiasm and interest as we get older, is reevaluating our worldview and just seeing what our looking at the ways in which we would like to change our worldview, looking at the ways in which our patterns are restrictions for us, and how those patterns might change. And it's not always about throwing them all out. Deconstructing a pattern is not always the thing to do. It's not that we want to deconstruct every thought pattern or every habitual behavior that we have so that we can stop doing it. Sometimes those behaviors are serving us, and this is, to me, where a really kind of interesting conversation starts to happen, and functional dialogue can start to happen between perspectives or worldviews that you might characterize as progressive and conservative, where if the progressive, in sort of apolitical terms, I'm thinking of these now in the sense of, there's a part of us that's always growing and changing, and that needs to experience something new, needs to experience novelty, and that is liberated, is literally spiritually liberated through the process of witnessing something that we're doing compulsively and learning to not do that compulsively. Even if the behavior is something we want to continue doing, we don't want to be doing it compulsively. And that change from unconscious to conscious is progressive. That's how I understand progressive. That's a shift in our perspective. We're moving. But on the other side of that, you have the kind of, again, thinking of it completely apolitically, the conservative impulse to retain healthy behavior, to retain value, to remain connected to the foundation. It's like, if we're building a structure, there's a foundation, and ignoring the foundation, or trying to swap out the foundation for a new one, is not effective. And so this is how I kind of affirm that impulse in myself to hold on to something that I cherish, or something that that I can really where I really can defend the value of it, and I can defend not changing. I actually would go to bat to not change something because it's healthy, or it's effective, or it is in integrity. So I'm getting kind of philosophical, I suppose, but this is that conversation and the conversation around those types of dynamics, but sometimes in more concrete terms, like about specific areas of life or specific things that we're wrestling with in our relationships and whatnot. That conversation, to have that conversation with family members, I find really interesting and inspiring, because we're going right back into the heart of where our imprinting took place, right? Like our families, for the most part, for most people, not everyone, but for most people, our nuclear family is the place where all that imprinting took place, a great deal of it. And so when we engage in those relationships really consciously and really sort of with the intention to question some of that, and to, it's not about throwing stuff out wholesale. It's just about looking at it and kind of re-experiencing it, and actually connecting with what some of that imprinting even is that we don't see in ourselves, but because someone else is a family member or someone we've literally kind of like been formed in the same forge with, we can see it in them, and then and it kind of reflects on us. And that whole process, that process of having that conversation with people that are really, that we have this long history with, feels really healthy to me. It just feels like deep evolution. And while we also need the new relationships and the completely unencumbered relationships in order to illuminate newness, and in order to discover new perspectives that we might not naturally, spontaneously assume, or that we might not spontaneously be able to evoke in ourselves. We need that too, but it's both. That's so. I'm appreciating that, and I'm it's just fun to hang with my brother, and B, I really do experience that kind of evolution, kind of in a real time way, and it's very inspiring. That's something that feels important, and it feels like it creates the possibility to, for what I would say is just kind of a healthy cultural evolution. Feels like I'm engaging in what, a healthy model of cultural evolution, when you can really look at stuff that you can go into your kind of deeply held beliefs and deeply held perspectives and challenge them, and or not challenge them, but just discuss them, and kind of become more aware of who we are. So that's really fun, and that's really, I'm just inspired by that. And the other thing I'm kind of where I am today is, we just finished our matinee of Macgyver yesterday afternoon. Great show. There's only 3 performances left, which I can hardly believe that's the case, but that's the case. And I get a couple of days off, which is lovely, but I'm really this is the home stretch, and I'm feeling incredible gratitude for where we've come, and yesterday's show, the swing had to play the lead, because the lead actress had she had an issue with her voice. She needed vocal rest, and there was this beautiful kind of membrane that formed around this swing performer who knocked it out of the park. And it was, so it was kind of like watching her just explode and rise, and at the same time the entire team, the entire show just collectively pour love and support into the space, so that no ball was ever going to get dropped no matter what. There was no sense that there might be any danger. So this, in a way, this very kind of like precarious thing, a swing going on in the lead of a 2.5-hour show with an audience member in the middle of it, felt just completely held and completely supported and ultimately very stable and almost easy. I mean, I can't speak for the actress, but it was a great night, and I'm appreciating what this show is on a new level as well, because it seems that the show demands of us that we are constantly remaining in that place. That's what you get when you decide to make a show and cast an audience member in the lead, is you're kind of saying to the universe, okay, what do you got? What are you gonna throw at me? And of course in some ways we've done that in a way that we can predict when it comes to the kind of central device of the show. But then the universe is like, oh, you thought you could isolate the unpredictability and put it in that one little slot that you've decided is where it should go? No. I'm gonna make you run rings around this. I'm gonna throw a curveball at you from any angle. Just because you've thrown yourself a curveball doesn't mean that I don't get to throw more curveballs. And that feels like something that we've been digesting and working with ever since the very beginning of the process. And so in some ways, when these kind of surprises happen, it's getting less and less surprising. It's becoming more and more, oh right, that's what we actually are asking for. That's what we're actually demanding of ourselves. That's what we're really putting out there. That's ultimately what we're wanting to live into, so that an audience also receives that. They don't just receive the unpredictability that we have offered, they receive it from a larger place as well. And settling into that and just learning to be on that edge of our seat, kind of readiness for anything, is another lesson that I'm drawing at this point in the process. It's really beautiful. So that is my Monday morning, where I've arrived and I get to go hang out with my brother for the rest of the day. I appreciate you folks. Love you very much. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.